It's not a wolf, or at least that is the English translation of this Italian dinosaur on the loose movie. So it's not a wolf, it's a raptor apocalypse movie. Oh yes. So the story focuses on this guy who has been released from prison, and he is from this point on house arrest, and he lives in this kind of large house in this rural Italian hamlet. And he kind of strikes up a romance with this kind of local girl who kind of sees him and sort of breaks into his house, and he has a little bit of a beef with his neighbour who's got a cat and he's got a dog and things like that. But their kind of somewhat kind of insignificant lives are thrown into turmoil when a raptor seemingly attacks this guy in his home, and that's just the first of many. And there appears to be, yes, a raptor apocalypse that is facing this small town, and this couple effectively are out trying to outrun these raptors and meet up with various other people. So you might be thinking, is this the Italian version of the Jurassic World or Park movies? I would say no, it's more like the Italian version of Carnosaur, if you are familiar with that low budget B movie, because this is a low budget B movie. Yes, there is raptors in this, and no, they are not CGI, they are practical suits, but think of those kind of suits that you see at kids' parties and things like that, where, you know, you've got a guy effectively walking around in a raptor suit. They look kind of cool, but it's one of those. And yes, one of those, it is the same raptor suit used to be effectively all of these raptors, just in different shots and things like that. So yes, it's kind of low budget, but what does work? I mean, you don't have CGI raptors. I mean, I have to say, despite this looking like one of those kind of suits from time to time, it's probably better than having a cheap CGI raptors. And it's kind of a fun concept, you know, the whole point of the title, of course, is that initially they think it's some type of wolf or cougar or something like that. But no, it's these raptors, and it's kind of played, you know, what the hell's kind of going on. We don't know really why this has happened, what they've come from. It's just lots of kind of like wild speculation about, oh yes, this is the end of the world and it's by raptors. So it's kind of like a little bit of a schlocky edge to it, and a lot of the characters seem somewhat kind of eccentric, but it has a somewhat of a fun edge, and we have shootouts with raptors, we have attacking them with baseball bats and stuff like that. So there's, you know, there's a fun amount of kind of action. I quite liked our two leads. I thought they were quite personable, and their interaction is kind of quite fun. We were introduced to a smattering of other characters, and it kind of soon goes into, you know, full-on apocalypse mode where humans end up turning on each other and end up kind of like going in cliques and gangs and things like that, and, you know, society's thrown out the window like your zombie apocalypse tropes. So there's some kind of fun elements here, but it always has this sort of schlocky edge to it, where characters seem very, very eccentric and kind of somewhat comedic at times. And one of the amusing things that I found with this film is the whole, even though this is only the first few days into this raptor apocalypse, their whole like way of living, all the humans, the surviving humans, seem to be based on cigarettes. It's like the trade of cigarettes is what these Italians are all about, and that's all they care about, is who's got the most amount of cigarettes, which I found quite amusing. And like I've said, I mean, the effects are, obviously it's just one of these kind of like party suits. They look quite cool and they scare kids, but yeah, it is better than having a CGI, you know, rubbishy effects and stuff like that. And they kind of look cool, especially when they are shot within more darkness and things like that. But they do a decent enough job, you know, kind of with the sound effects and things like that. It's not a gory film necessarily, but yeah, it's kind of a little bit fun at least to have these dinosaur attacks in kind of a random sort of like Italian village. It's a fun concept. What doesn't work, I mean, there's not a lot to this film, to be honest. I would say the first half an hour is the strongest, but from there it seems a little directionless. In actual fact, I had to check whether I had seen like some hacked up cut, if I'm honest, because after the first half an hour it has this really jarring edit, but apparently that's the movie. I had to do a little bit of research, and there's not a whole lot of information about this film, but we have a sequence after the first attack. They're confronted by police and neighbours and stuff, and then it just has this edit, and then they're in our couple are in the town, and there's none of the other characters are there, and they're thinking, well, what's happened? It looks like that there was a scene that was cut, but apparently this was the way it was meant to be. Strange edit, and then we have this a kind of a good long section that doesn't even feature our main characters. It's more about this kind of group of people that that we encounter in this kind of little hamlet, and how they're kind of dealing with another small group, and it really doesn't go anywhere. I mean, it doesn't really have any bearing on the actual kind of story, really, but we just spend a good 20 minutes with them. So it's a really odd film in regards to its structure. I said the first half an hour feels fairly kind of well put together, but from there it just seems to go off on a tangent, and the pacing as such kind of falls off a cliff at times. I mean, we end up with our couple meeting this like very eccentric guy, and then this kind of other group, and then the kind of the raptor attacks are not as prevalent there. So there's no real big finish to this movie. It's just this kind of like it ends in a little bit of a abrupt way, which is a little bit anticlimactic, is all I'm going to say. You would expect to have some final kind of conflict or challenge or test or confrontation, at least with a raptor, but no. And as I mentioned, the raptor, it's obviously they've got one suit, and you know, at times you can kind of get away with that, but it really does feel like they already have, you know, you only ever see like one raptor at a time, even when they're supposed to be kind of like multiple on screen at any one time. And so the budget really does kind of show through as well. And I think that tonally this movie is very all over the place, because our main characters seem quite grounded, but then some of the kind of the subsequent characters that we meet seem massively cartoonish. So this movie to me really feels like it's very undecided about what it wants to do, and as such it ends up becoming quite a messy film, and very kind of directionless, I have to say, both in tone and the way the story is structured. And as I say, some of the characters are just kind of cartoony, and I have to say somewhat annoying. And there's elements here that just seem kind of pointless. So overall, you know, it's a weirdly fun movie in some aspects, but in other aspects, I have to say that the actual structure of it is actually kind of quite poorly put together. I mean, looking at this critically, I can't even say it's like an average film, because the structure of the film is so scattershot. I would say it is a below average film, but there is an element of fun to it that may be appealing to some, if you don't mind such a weirdly kind of constructed movie in many ways. So I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Please do leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to you next time.